What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P, Shannon White. We are back. It has been a while. You actually haven't seen us since the start of the season. You've seen a little bit of me, not a little bit of me. Not seen any much of Shannon, unless you watch Shannon on some of his other different networks and shows, but outside of this platform. But Shannon White, how are you doing, my good friend?
I'm doing great. Like we was talking before the show, I've missed this podcast and missed talking to you, and I always enjoy our discussions on the Steelers. And we're 4 weeks into the season, and we've not had one show yet. So there's a lot of catching up we need to do.
That's it. And that's a really good segue. So I think one of the first things I wanted to sort of talk about, and I know we could go in all different twists and directions, so I want to keep it pretty top line, and we'll explore it through the other segments that or shows that we release throughout the weekend. But I want to talk about a bit of a health check for the Steelers. And, I think going into the Colts, I'll give you my perspective, but going into the Colts game, I was actually really buoyant. Obviously, I got to go and watch the Steelers beat the Chargers, and I think they look good. I thought they were dealing with the injuries pretty well, but I still thought there was a lot to work on. And I found myself, probably in different things that I absorbed or tweets that I saw or videos, or even when I went to the Steelers game, I found I would have to put myself on the positive to negative scale. This being the negative, I somehow was closer to the negative. I was still really optimistic about the team and going forward in the season, but found myself on the negative. I thought they were getting by in games, over relying on the defense. Then the Colts game happens, and we have even more injuries. And now I kind of, going into the Colts game, my lens was a little bit of how I was feeling was every team has injuries. Yes, we've been hit by some injury curse, but we seem to really struggle with these injuries and still not be able to do on offense. Meanwhile, in my fantasy team, Chase Brown, his second year with the Bengals, is getting like 27 points in fantasy and killing it. Why can't Najee Harris, a first-round draft pick, do it? And we can talk about the line and all those things, right? But then the Colts game happens, and we have James Daniels go down with possible injury to Herbig. And I wanted to pull up the injury report that got released about an hour ago as we record this. And obviously that'll change probably by the time this show goes out. But point being is, now I think they are actually being implicated by injuries. And now it's actually a bit of an issue. But it's not that it wasn't an issue before, but now you can legitimately say they are being very hampered by injuries. But at the same time, while I have not been high on Justin Fields, and I did a show this week where I sort of gave my thoughts on that, gave that show, and then the next 24 hours, all I see on little snippets of on Rich Eisen and Pat McAfee and Mike Florio shows, all this sort of stuff. Everyone's talking about how good Fields is getting, and I'm sitting here going, but the guy still wants to run first. The guy still misses like blatant reads that last year we were panning Pickett and Trubisky for, and you're all going, he could be the future. And I'm sitting here going, don't pay the guy $40 million. And then I'm hearing in the 48 hours leading up to this show that us recording this, that everyone wants Devontae Adams. And I'm like, who's going to throw him the freaking football? But I just kind of wonder whether I'm just being a really pessimistic, negative person, right?
Well, like I said, we haven't got to talk at all since the season started. And it's obvious. I think you would be in a different mindset had you been having our regular discussions and looking at things maybe from my perspective. The reason I say that is it's the law of averages. The Steelers, 2 years in a row they've had offensive linemen starting miss less games than anybody in the NFL. So when you have that level of good fortune, it should lead to a good team, and it really didn't because they didn't have a lot of talent on those offensive lines.
And the coaching.
Yeah, they were durable, but it doesn't mean they were good.
Yeah.
But the law of averages have caught up to the Steelers. So we have Troy Fautanu, who is out for the year, which is very, very disappointing because I wanted to see him and Jones be the starting tackles. I did not want more to be in there, but it is what it is. But then James Daniels, who's been your most consistent offensive lineman through those 2 fortunate years, now he's out with Achilles for the season. And he really hasn't been their best lineman this year. He's had a couple of stinkers, and then he was starting.
And he had a slow start last year.
He really started to turn it on, and then to Terry's Achilles, that was unfortunate. But my expectations obviously were different than yours. I said the offense is going to start slow because whether it was Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, they are going to have to implement them into this offense, Arthur Smith's offense. And it's going to take a while for the offensive line, if they were completely healthy, to gel and generate the running game that they need to make the play action work and to make whichever quarterback comfortable and effective. Well, with the injuries, it started in training camp. And we can name all the guys that was injured. They was not able to develop chemistry or cohesion. The season started. I've been very impressed with Fields, much more so than you. The reason why is because I've watched him for 3 years with Chicago.
Yeah.
And Fields' biggest issue for me is progressions. Coming off the first receiver, second receiver, maybe even the third receiver. Now, part of that's because he didn't have a good line. And it's hard to get to the third read if you've got pressure coming. Well, it's the beginning of this season was the same thing. But at the game you was at with the Chargers, he went to his third progression more than once. I think if I remember, there was 3 separate times that he not only progressed to his third progression, but he threw an accurate on-time pass. He hit Calvin Austin with a couple over the middle for a big first down and then the long touchdown. He's throwing like against Denver. If it wasn't for the penalties, he would have had another 150 yards. He was throwing beautiful on the run, which we know he can do all that. The guy's immensely talented. He is the quarterback of the future. Because now it's all about location. Sam Darnold looks like a bust. He gets to Minnesota. He gets in the right system. He gets in the right culture. He gets the right supporting cast. And now they're 4-0, and he looks like, comeback player of the year. I think we're going to see the same thing with Justin Fields to a lesser degree because Fields is not surrounded with the same skill position talent that we know that Darnold is. Well, one of the things that's killing Fields is, again, the upheaval and the musical chairs on the offensive line. But you said it yourself about the Devontae Adams. I'm not interested in that. Yeah. Everybody says, "Oh, you get that, you're a Super Bowl." No,
they can't afford it, but they can't. Afford it.
Arthur Smith's offense, number 1 wide receiver, ton of targets. Tight end, ton of targets. Running backs, ton of targets. The wide receiver 2 can be a hodgepodge of different type guys. Had Roman Wilson not got hurt at camp, I think he would be the wide receiver 2 right now. But he's kind of playing catch up. But Devontae Adams is older. He's super expensive. And we see the attitude he's had, saying that, I got to get out of here on the sidelines where he knows he's being recorded because he says, they're going to get me killed. He's a typical diva. And if he was to come to Pittsburgh, that's going to set back George Pickens. Yeah. And the Steelers can't afford both and sign Wilson or Fields, which I hope it's Fields, as your next franchise opportunity guy. You're not going to be able to afford all that. So I think that actually Adams would get in the way of what we need to learn about Pickens.
So I'm like, I'll give you the out because they're 4 games in, but you would be comfortable with them handing $35 million plus to Justin Fields right now?
Not yet, no.
No, right, okay.
But I'm seeing, like I said, my only question with him was his ability to go through progressions. It's so hard for a guy that athletic to stand in the pocket to the last second and take a shot in the face or the chops to complete that big pass at the end of games when it matters, the winning moments. Because your instinct when you're that athletic is to get out of the pocket and try to.
What I like watching all 4 games through and through, and some of them a little bit, a couple of times over. And I saw it live, and I get it was one play, and I get we all make mistakes, but they were in the red zone. They and he had Calvin Austin and George Pickens completely open where they were. They blitzed their the cornerbacks or the secondary, it was the defensive backs that were on them. But he missed them because, and I get you're talking about he's going through the progressions and getting the third one, but the first progression for Justin Fields every single time, or 95 times out of 100, is run first. And he tried to run first. I watched that play. He didn't even look. He went to run first when they were in that red zone. They were about 15 yards out. And it cost the Steelers, like, I watched that, like, watching that live, and the guy that I sat next to, and we were both talking about it, there were at least 3 glaring touchdowns in that game that were missed. And in the Broncos game, there are a couple of instances as well. And I missed one of the quarters live against the Colts that I had to catch up on. But I definitely saw a couple of similar moments. And when I was at the game, I could, like, it became very apparent to me because I was watching where his head was looking. And his head was, like, not looking at, like, obviously I don't see through his eyes. I'm not like a remote viewer or telepathic. But he wasn't looking at his wide receivers.
Well, now on the play you're talking about, if it's the one I remember, they cover him his blind side. There has been, okay, like the last game against the Colts, he rolled out to his left, and he made a really nice throw across his body.
Yep.
Up the seam to Freiermuth for about 12 yards. If you watch the whole play, he had Austin about 20-some yards down the field, heading towards the sidelines. And it's a throw that he's made many times this year. And he's really good at that throw. But he took the easier throw.
He does take easier throws.
And I don't know if he even, well, one, I know they tell him to protect the ball and not put it up for, if it would have been Anthony Richardson, he would have gunned it down like he did on the first play of the game. But Fields they're trying to rein some of that in. We know how Tomlin likes to play. But he missed Austin there. But there's also been times that we got to be honest that he's had multiple drops that his numbers would have looked even better if Freiermuth hadn't dropped it, if Pickens hadn't dropped it.
Yeah, I'm less, and it's funny, like I would have killed for a quarterback to have thrown 300 yards in week 4 for the Steelers, like last year, and to rush for what he's rushed with. Like, I'm getting less about the numbers, and my thing is more about, I think he's reined in some of the bad decisions, and I think the Steelers have done a lot there with him. I don't think he's a pass first quarterback. And to me, if you're going to win a Super Bowl, you have to have a pass first quarterback. And
but it's yet we have to understand that his 3 years in Chicago was wasted years in a bad system that cannot develop quarterbacks. That it's been proven. I mean, just look at their whole history of that franchise. Now I think he's in a situation that he's got Arthur Smith, he's got Tomlin who believes in him, and I believe that we are going to see. I didn't want him starting this quick. I wanted him to have no pressure and to learn behind Wilson. That was the plan. I think it's what everybody wanted. But because of the injury, he has to step up. And we're seeing him still make progressions. We're seeing him make progress and improve. Yeah. And against the Colts, I said, oh, gosh, when they got behind, what was it, 17-0? I said, this is over. But he led 3 straight touchdown drives. The defense of the Steelers never did play good all game.
No.
I think they really stopped them maybe the last drive and give the Steelers
terrible.
a chance.
And Tomlin was you could tell visibly, very, very angry on the sideline.
Well, that's your typical Tomlin trap game. They were not ready. The coaches wasn't ready. The players wasn't ready. Who does that fall on? We've talked about it on other podcasts, but they were not ready to play. And the Colts were. Colts smacked them in the mouth. It looked like every playoff game since 2015. It looked like the Houston Texans game last year. And you're playing a team that you theoretically can beat, but not when your defense, where you have the highest paid defense in the NFL, does it show up.
Yep.
Now, in TJ's defense, they held him, they tackled him, they did everything they could. Hayward done the best he could to slow down the running game.
You know what? Like TJ is a better man than me. I tell you, with the amount of holding going on with him.
Oh, it's crazy! It's crazy.
You know what I would do if I would, and he won't, and he shouldn't anyway, because not every tackle is an asshole that that he goes up against. But it's almost like I just want him to do like a massive flagrant professional foul, and then kick up just get the tackle, just grab him and just take off his helmet, and because Myles Garrett didn't get into trouble, and just take off his helmet. You don't punch him, right? Just take off your helmet and tap it, right? You don't have to smack him too hard, but just tap it on the guy. And when the refs go all nuts, you can go, well, what's the difference? Like, what actually constitutes? Like, there needs to be a discussion in the NFL about what is a hold and what is not, because or you know what? Tomlin doesn't challenge enough stuff. Challenge the next time the Steelers get called for holding, challenge it, and then at the end after the game, talk about it in the press conference and be like, well, what is a hold? Because this is it is a joke. Like, it's bad enough the Minka hits, but
oh, exactly. That was just there was no way. He tried to pull up, but when you're both heading in a certain direction at full speed, you can't just magically divert. So when he did, he turned like this and let him hit him in the back of the shoulders because he was trying not to hit him. It was obvious, and they still threw the penalty. So it was a ridiculous call. But again, I just think that Fields is showing me, one, he's playing more than I wanted to see, but in the meantime, he is showing me abilities that I wasn't sure that he had.
Okay.
And
can I ask you this question then?
There's a fine line, real quick. There's a fine line for a guy who's that athletic. Is can you develop, say, like a Steve Young or another guy that had great mobility that had to learn, because when he first came in the NFL, he was a runner. Can you develop to where you can stand in there and make the winning play when it's necessary, when it has to be? And that only time will answer that.
Fair point. And I'm not out on him. I'm not saying he's the worst thing since, whatever. But I just, I think
Sunday night is another important game for him. It's another opportunity.
What I was going to ask you was that if they were playing a playoff game tomorrow, right? And I get you, we would have seen more of the season, so you can only go off 4 weeks. And Russ was fully fit, and Fields was fully fit. You're playing a playoff game. They just go home, season over next week, make a big decision about quarterback. Who are you starting?
Fields. And here's why. Wilson is not that mobile anymore. This line is still developing. There's still issues. The middle has been taken care of. Frazier is, you don't see that pressure up the middle unless McCormick misses a block or Anderson when he was in there for Siamalu. But, Frazier is not getting pushed back. And guys, Fields can step up in the pocket because the pressure's been coming from the outside.
But he doesn't, though.
And Fields will step up, and he has made some good runs too, though.
No, I'm like, as a runner, he's a freak.
Yeah.
I just think right now, to me, he feels like a very, very, very Lamar Jackson light.
But he's doing this, Matty, with no running game. Now, eventually in this podcast, we have to talk about Najee Harris. I have some very strong opinions about this Najee Harris situation. And we will get to that. But what Fields is doing is with what everybody's saying, one quality wide receiver, just getting into the tight end usage, and no running game. So,
so my question then
that can improve.
It might not be a criticism of him, but like, why are we only just getting into the tight end game 4 weeks in? My other thing is that, like, I know that he doesn't have a running game there, but I saw, like, even before Warren got injured in that Chargers game, like, I watched those guys roll out to flats and be open, and he went, "No, I'm going to run it up the middle and go like 2 yards or get absolutely crushed." Look, anyway, like, we've got a lot of the season to figure it out, but like, I still don't think that either of those gentlemen are a long-term answer at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, said I can't say that yet. I think Fields can be. I do not think Russell Wilson's the long term due to size limitations, age, contract demands.
He's not either.
Yeah, he was a 1 or 2 year thing. Fields, on the other hand, could be 5 to 10 years if he could continue to progress and in this offense and strengthen his weaknesses. And I think he's in the right place to do it right now.
All unfold. That's going to wrap up this segment of the Steelers Global Perspective.